Welcome back to the world of Diablo 4, and today we got a few things to go over. Starting off, we have more PvP complaints. Players are not happy again about PvP. We talked about PvP in the last video, and we're going to be covering that as well. But yeah, maybe some players are a little bit too entitled. Also, we have a post from Forbes going over some changes coming to Diablo 4. This includes uber rare uniques, drop rate changes, and of course nerfs, as well as a cheat sheet for you to use for your Season 1 push. We have quite a bit to go over today, so let's begin. Alright, to our first post, check out this one. It has over 10,700 upvotes. To the dismay of some, D4 devs have no plans to disable PvP from a zone dedicated for PvP. So we have Crizzo, he says, give the option to disable PvP. Adam Fletcher responded with saying, to do that, follow these steps. Don't walk into the optional areas on the map called Fields of Hatred. And then Crizzo responded with saying, or just give the option to disable it so I can enjoy the entire map of the game I paid for. And then Adam responded by saying there are no plans to disable PvP. Again, I recommend you just not walking into those areas that have PvP. Now, first off, this idea of the game that I paid for, that is such a entitlement response. You actually paid, you paid for a license to play the game, if I'm being honest, but you paid for a game knowing that it came with the fact that 2 small zones in the entire map has the possibility of being attacked in PvP. You're not hardcore, you just click respawn and you go right back to where you were doing. But like this whole idea that you paid for it as if like you didn't know what you paid for is just straight up silly. Now, there's always something with PvP going on in this game. Either the 5 people who actually participate in PvP complaining about Hoda bug, or some entitled player who ran through the zone and got hit by a player is complaining. What is going on with PvP in this game? Why can't people just figure it out? If you don't like PvP, don't participate in it. If you like PvP and you know this is a very PvE focused game rather, then expect the balance to be wacky as hell. So I just don't get this whole PvP notion. In my opinion, I think you just scrap PvP because honestly it's just not working in this game. Too many people complaining on both ends for my liking, but man, I will say I really love Adam Fletcher's response to this. Just don't walk into the optional Fields of Hatred area. Holy, this is the kind of responses that I would actually have if I was in the community manager. And more times than not, I would just ignore them if it was me, because I think this is just a stupid reason to complain. But I love seeing these responses like this because there's a time and a place for complaining about stuff, and this is most definitely not one of them. If you don't want a PvP, don't walk into the zone. If you want to go get the Altars of Lilith, know that you may get attacked. It's not even hard to not be attacked. Like, you have a horse, you could just run away from them, go click the altars and move on. What's that about? Anyway, let's move on to the next part of the video. Alright, now like I said in the beginning of the video, there was a post from Forbes from Paul Tassi. We've covered him a few times in the past. He was the guy confused about how seasons worked. He had a exclusive interview. I don't know why I said exclusive, but he had an interview with Joe Sheely as well as Rod Ferguson, just going over some of the things coming with Season 1. And I did read the whole post, but I'm going to pick out a handful of things that I thought were interesting. So the first one is this one. There is one new Uber Unique coming this season. They previously said there wasn't, but corrected that later. Uber Uniques refer to the Harley Quinn crest, the Godfather, stuff like that. No, the Grandfather, sorry. I just got done watching the movies. Anyway, I pressed them on the absolute insane drop rate. It's easy to add additional opportunities to get them. It's harder to go the other way where you have something that's common, Sheely said. They indicated that in the future, the drop rates or path to acquiring them may not quite as be 1 in a million as rare as they are now. And then he says, do not yell at me when this happens. Now, for me, when it comes to this post, this is very telling. First off, I love seeing new Uber Uniques. Hopefully they actually bring something unique to the table, because the uniques are like kind of trash in this game. Like, most of them are pretty bad in my opinion. Like, there's 1 or 2 that works okay with the skill and they complement them, but most of them are pretty bad considering their drop rate. With that said, I hope that when it comes to the drop rate for them, they don't do a 180 on this and they just have it dropping like candy. I think players should actually be able to get it, but also not have it constantly. I've noticed that whenever Diablo or the devs do something with the game, it's very extremely overtuned, like the gauntlets that we're going to talk about in a second. The ones that was on Whirlwind where they did a ton of damage. and then it went from like being crazy powerful to being completely garbage and not usable. I hope they can find a middle ground. I'm not used to Blizzard and their behaviors when it comes to balance, because again, I don't really play any of their live service games, but I feel like a lot of times I find Blizzard to be very extreme in one way, and then the opposite end when they're trying to balance it, they go extremely the other way, and they can't find a middle ground. I hope they can find a middle ground for this, because I don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry running around with all the uber uniques. I think people who play enough should get them, but not every single one gets a drop. But that's just my thoughts. Alright, so next in this article, there was another part, and it read, unlike the past mid-season patch, which was 99% buffs, there will indeed be nerfs coming with the seasonal start here. Sheely didn't get into specifics, but gave a familiar, we have to nerf some things, sometimes we can't always buff all things buff all other things. Answer that most games like this have to address at some point. And like, this was pretty obvious it's going to happen. I think they're going to be targeted at, believe it or not, the barbarian, which is kind of sad. It's going to be the Hoda thing. I don't know if you guys remember, some time ago Hoda was getting, like, it lost half its damage because the devs were like, we're not nerfing it, we're just doing something to fix it. They were actually trying to fix it and they end up nerfing it. I 100% guarantee you what's going to end up resulting in is basically Barb's only viable skill. I mean, Whirlwind can work, but it's so one-dimensional. But anyway, that one skill is going to get nerfed to the ground. We did see a lot of like posts from people double dipping on the Shred Druid because they're like abusing some mechanic to make it work. Whatever the reason is, but basically Shred Druid is going to get nerfed as well. I'm assuming Blood Spear is going to get nerfed. Not Blood Spear, but Bone Spear is going to get nerfed. Hopefully they buff Sorcerer, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of nerfs, unfortunately, to the two classes that generally struggles the most, in my opinion, for build diversity. And of course, Rogue is going to not be anywhere near in sight of getting a nerf as usual. Maybe like 0.1 second on their Twisting Blades cooldown for the third time in a row. Who knows? Anyway, this is a little interesting point. As I told you guys, there are going to be some nerfs coming, so any Hoda players, have fun while you have it. Now, this is the last thing I want to go over in this post, and this one reads, I asked about why a lot of uniques feel underpowered compared to legendary counterpart, and they said that uniques are not meant to be an ultimate level of gear necessarily above legendaries paired with aspects. They are supposed to slide in alongside certain builds to make them unique rather than be alright better than anything else. It is not that you must get every unique to have every viable option system that we've seen in the past. So I understand the philosophy behind this, but I want to bring up a unique on the screen. You should see it now. With that in mind, I do want to show you this gauntlet because I want to understand the philosophy behind the design of some of these uniques. So checking out Gore's Devastation Grips. Whirlwind explodes after it ends, dealing a total of the base damage dealt, surrounding in the fire damage. Alright, makes sense. You give your Whirlwind some explosion. I don't know why you would give it fire damage, doesn't make much sense, but is a Whirlwind base gauntlet, right? It is built around the idea of using Whirlwind with the skill. Whirlwind is a physical damage that does fire damage with the explosion. So let's look at the other stats. Non-physical damage bonus. More times than not, even if you're using Gore's Devastation, you're still going to be doing a lot of physical damage. Ranks to Whirlwind. That's absolutely great. More extra damage, cool. Attack speed. Attack speed is not affecting Whirlwind in any capacity. If you have attack speed on your Whirlwind build, you get no benefit from it. Lucky hit chance. The lucky hit's not very great on Whirlwind builds in general because of the basic. I believe it has one of the lowest lucky hit chance multipliers. So lucky hit, attack speed, non-physical damage, and the literal only benefit on this is ranks to Whirlwind. I understand where they're coming from, where they say that they think that some like unique should benefit the build or whatever, but this inherently does not work at all with with Whirlwind. Like outside of the ranks to Whirlwind, the other stats are basically dead and or just less efficient than many other things that you get on a base pair of like rare gloves, you know? Right now, when you look at a lot of the uniques, they simply don't even make sense for the build. These are not good, and they really need to get a hold on these uniques. They're just straight up terrible. Now, I did promise a cheat sheet for you guys to have for Season 1. And check this post out, and I'll have it linked down in the description. Of course, all this is maps to all side quests that leads to dungeon for optimal renown on season 1. So as you can see, there is basically, it shows you the name of the quest, how they lead into the dungeon, so that you can get basically all your renown done while doing quests, which is going to be much more efficient than just like randomly doing things. Personally, I'm going to be doing the bare minimum. Basically, I'm just do some quests, or mainly just all the dungeons for the aspects, and then kind of move on, because I don't really care about the 5 skill points. But for those of you who do value doing the side quests as well as getting enough renown so that you can like complete it without overdoing it, I'll have this link down in the description for you to, you know, check out. Alright, on to my favorite part of the video. As usual, guys, if you have any comments that you want me to read or go over, I will, you know, read them out loud, leave them down below, and I may put them on the screen and we'll talk about it. Last week, we did talk about nerfs to the barbarian, Hoda, the weird people attacking Adam Fletcher, stuff like that. That was last week's video, so we do have some responses and comments in regards to that. But again, feel free to leave them down below. And on to the first comment. And this is going to be a pair of comments. The first one is, Hoda needs nerfed into the ground. I play low HP bulk druid. Very few can get through my barrier. Hoda can blow me up in under 2 seconds. It needs its damage cut in half. Seriously, I have 80% low life DR, on top of very reasonable DR for close, fortify, etc. The fact that I have a barrier that has much DR behind it and get blown up in a single instant, it's ridiculous. If I die that fast, I don't know how 90% of people are not getting one-shotted. And the next comment is, cool, finally, it's gonna be a real nerf. I am sincerely tired of PvP full of hit kill barbs. Next step is to nerf druid as well, which are also pretty much broken with bulwark and mortal DPS builds. 0 cooldown for the cave shields, unstoppable. It's kind of funny that these two people are actually kind of similar, because one guy is playing the immortal build and then the other guy is complaining about the immortal build being nerfed, which is very telling of PvP state. But I have a solution for both of you, because I think you guys are missing the point. Let's say, for example, that I hit you for 300k, because that's a number I see in PvP. Now let's say we reduce the damage of a barbarian by 90% and I still hit you for 30k. More times than not, most people will die from that hit. So is the solution to nerf barbarian damage by 90%? Or is the solution to rebalance PvP in a meaningful way where people aren't getting one shot? I think if you ask any person who kind of understands the general idea of gaming, they would actually opt to change how PvP works rather than nerfing classes. Remember, you are the mass minority of the player base. Probably less than 1% of the player base actually participate in PvP, while the vast majority participate in PvE. If you make a drastic change where one of you said cut it in half, when I hit you at 150k damage, I still kill you. The problem isn't how the skill works, the problem is that PvP is not balanced in a meaningful way. Now, I do have a few responses that are actually a little bit more sensible. The first one is from RipN9191. A character being able to one-tap 20k life characters is a problem. I just feel bad for the PvE barbs. I hope they can make a nerf in PvP that is not affecting PvE. And this is like realistically the most logical way of like doing it. You don't just nerf a skill and hope that it fixes it. It actually won't fix it, because that's not the problem. The obvious problem is the way that PvP is designed is not properly applying like damage balance. Also, I know levels are like really crazy. Like if you're level 70, you can meet a level 100. That is a massive disparity in power level, by the way. On to the final comment, and this one's from Century66. Saga, I totally agree with you. We can be pissed off about this or that in game, but we don't attack Adam. He's a nice guy and he's not to blame for our in-game frustrations. Now this is in response to the one guy that was like mad at Adam Fletcher for posting about going on vacation or something. Like, just I'm just gonna say he's just a weirdo for doing that. Now the reason why at the end of the day, these guys are, again, just normal people just like you and me. Go do a job. It's not the funnest job, I would know, because my best friend is actually a community manager. Well, actually, no, he's not. He stepped down for community management because people were very, very annoying and rude and death threats and that kind of stuff. But generally, the community managers I interact with are almost always the nicest people in the whole gaming industry. some of the like keys that I was able to give away, or like Diablo game copies I was able to give away in the past. Some thanks to Looking for Hill. He's the guild leader for the guild should you want to like join the guild. But anyway, some of the keys I was actually able to use to give the game away in the past, a lot of those came from Adam Fletcher or came from like other game devs that are like community managers that give them out. So people being mad at community managers have like some really misplaced hate, because like as I said, more times than not, the community managers are actually the nicest people in the whole entire like business, in my opinion. But that's just my thought. Anyway, that is it for this video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Again, don't forget to leave your comments so I can respond to them in the next video. Yeah, don't forget to like as well as subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.